The Brockton School Committee to order, it being Tuesday, February 8th, 2022, 7 p.m. I ask everybody, please stand and salute our American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first of all, I want to welcome everybody. We have a full agenda tonight. We have a great audience here as well. I want to thank BCA. I want to thank Thomas, and of course, Melinda Campbell. On behalf of the school committee, Melinda, we want to thank you for acquiring Robert's Rules for every member of the committee. With that being said, as someone that served 14 years on the city council, 5 of those years as the council president, I am always going to adhere to Robert's Rules. So there's process and procedure relative to Robert's Rules. So I do want to thank Superintendent and Melinda for acquiring these. And we'll keep those handy at all times. We do have, God bless you, Mike, we do have to establish a quorum. I will just go around. Mr. Sullivan? Here. Mr. Homer?
Here.
Mrs. Ayers?
Here.
Mrs. Rivas-Mendez?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Ms. Azak?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
The chair is here as well. We've established a quorum. We do now go on to Agenda 2. We have 3 members of the general public. I want to thank you all for being here again that have signed in for the hearing of visitors. Just to let everybody know again, hearing of visitors allows the general public to come to this podium, speak to the members of the school committee, myself as mayor, the chair, and also secretary, superintendent of the schools, Mike Thomas. There is a 3-minute maximum relative to the speaking. So Mrs. Campbell, Melinda over there does keep track of that. So I do want to thank the 3 that have signed up. We have Stacey McDonald, Alice Stapleton, and Mary Najee. So with that being said, I'd ask Ms. McDonald, please come to the podium over here. I'm just going to move it.
Bring me a chair. Good evening, Superintendent Thomas, Mayor Sullivan, school committee members. Let me introduce myself. My name is Stacey McDonald, and I am the union president for the Brockton Paraprofessional Association. I felt that it was only fair for me to speak regarding the job ad post for the community allies and what was stated at the last school committee meeting on January 18th. We as a union want to be very clear. We are in favor of the community allies position at a rate of $25 an hour. No one should be working for less than $25 an hour in Brockton Public Schools, and that's including all of us. So I'd like to address a few things. Please know we currently have monitoring teaching assistants who are walking the halls, monitoring the doors at BHS. So they will be performing the same duties as the community allies. However, at a rate nowhere near $25 an hour. So where is the equity? It was also stated that the community allies would have a 1-day de-escalation training. The paraprofessionals on January 20th did have the opportunity to watch a 1-hour video segment on de-escalation and behavior management, and we appreciated it. But let me stress, none of my members has been given the chance or the opportunity to attend this 1-day training. I would also like to state that my members have been called in to handle situations that they should never have been called in to handle. They have been asked to deal with students that are physically abusive, and we have not got the proper training. So where's the equity in that? Let me just shed some light on why this is not equitable. A paraprofessional starting rate is $16.90, and after 20 years of service, you can make $24.48, and that's the highest you can go. An MTA starting rate is $19.47, and after 10 years, they can earn $21.33, and they must have a bachelor's degree. It was stated at the last school committee meeting that the district currently has about 60 para positions open, and is having a difficult time filling those positions. Why is that? Maybe it's the $16.90 starting wage. But I believe the district received an overwhelming number of applicants for the community allies position. Why is that? Probably it's the $25 an hour starting wage. We are educational paras and MTAs working directly with students of all abilities. We are worthy of $25 an hour. I know that the district will say we have permanent benefited positions, and I agree, benefits are good. But we can't pay our bills, we can't buy food with those benefits. So in closing, I would like to say that we urge you to invest in paraprofessionals and MTAs by treating us just as you are treating these community allies positions. We are going into negotiations, and we hope that you are ready to treat your long-term employees as well as you have treated these community allies. You have all received the petition signed by all the members of the BEPA. I hope this does not fall on deaf ears. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald. Ms. Stapleton, please come to the podium.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. My name is Alice Stapleton, and I'm an early childhood educator who's worked for Brockton Public Schools for over 19 years. I'm here this evening in support of our outstanding paraprofessionals attaining a living wage. They are instructional support staff that are an invaluable resource and play a vital role to our students, staff, and families at Brockton Public Schools. They support our most vulnerable students, and it's due time for the school committee to recognize them for the work they do and show their appreciation by offering them a living wage. Under the supervision of a teacher, paras provide students an array of essential supports needed to achieve academic success. They support students in substantially separate, inclusion, sheltered English immersion, and regular education classes. During the course of a day, paras gather necessary assessment data that drives instruction while providing academic support, aid students who struggle with expectations for class behavior, in addition to supporting social, emotional needs, communication development, adaptive skills, necessary medical care, and self-care. Additionally, many paras in our SEI and ISEI classrooms are bilingual. This skill set brings immeasurable value to both our students and their families. Their support in this area addresses student learning gaps and helps them improve in all subject areas to reach student learning goals. Their support in this area also goes beyond the classroom and has proven to be an essential for families and that may have a communication barrier. Paras are flexible staff who can cover classrooms when teachers are absent, attend team meetings, or handle a student crisis with ease. Having worked at the Davis School in various classrooms from kindergarten through third grade, I have worked with exceptionally devoted, hardworking, and caring paras who understand early intervention is the key to student success. What I have detailed shows how extremely challenging the job of a paraprofessional is and why the school committee needs to consider offering a living wage, especially with the devastating effects of the pandemic. I'm bringing up a very real concern to retain the staff Brockton has and what needs to be addressed for Brockton to remain competitive in the job market in comparison to neighboring districts, while also focusing on the high rate of inflation and cost of living as issues that impacts paras substantially more than certified staff. For example, no one can ignore that the pandemic has driven a very different mindset in every job industry, and education is no different. Educators are no longer afraid to leave a district in search of a job with higher pay and better benefits. The pool for jobs is quite large right now, and potential candidates are taking advantage of that in any way they can. What and how is the district prepared to handle a situation if paras leave and no one applies to fill the vacancies? In many classroom situations, that may lead to IEP service delivery issues. My bottom line is this: paras deserve to be paid a living wage, and I implore you, as a classroom teacher, to do what you can to make it happen. I know I'm not alone. I have worked with paras on and off for 19 years, and I've spoken to many of my teacher colleagues who feel the same way. We all need, we all respect, and we all rely on paraprofessionals. Please ensure paraprofessionals earn a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stapleton. Ms. Najee, please.
Good evening. My name is Mary Najee. I'm the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. I appreciate you welcoming me to your city and giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm also on leave from my kindergarten classroom. I've been an elementary school educator for 28 years in the classroom before I took this job. And I can tell you firsthand, I teach in a district, Concord, Massachusetts, where we have the economic resources to be able to pay our paraeducators a living wage. And I can tell you firsthand that the faces of our paraeducators are often the first faces that our students see, whether they're in a good mood or a bad mood. They're often the last faces of the day that our students see as well. Our paraeducators do very similar work to licensed classroom teachers, and yet they are paid far less and have far less working conditions. Education is care work. And when you look at the amazing faces in this audience, the workforce is predominantly women, women of color, and people of color. And the younger the age of the child, the more often it is women that fills these roles. So earning a living wage is a question of economic, gender, and racial justice. And I can tell you the MTA is fighting like crazy to win as much funding for public education as possible. And I know the city of Brockton came in hard on the fight to win the Student Opportunity Act. To the best of my recollection, Brockton has $53 million in ESSER funds. Don't quote me exactly, but that's what I remember. Now is the time to spend those ESSER funds. I applaud you for creating these new positions that will keep your high school students safe, but they cannot come at the expense of the wages of the members of your community who have committed their lives to serving the students of Brockton. And I can also tell you, I was in the State House today. Give yourselves a round of applause.
We have 3 minutes, please.
Because the most precious resource the town of Brockton has is your children, right? And we have to value at all costs the people who take care of them. And those are the people in this room and the people that you don't see. I was at the State House today, not physically, but by Zoom, talking to Chairwoman Peisch, advocating that in next year's budget, they adjust this amount of Student Opportunity Act for inflation, which could be as high as 4.9%. To which their concern is, if your ESSER funds are not yet spent, how can they justify giving inflationary rates to public education when there's so many other services in the Commonwealth that need them? So I encourage you, use your ESSER funds, use them now to pay your paras a living wage. You will not fall off the fiscal cliff because the Student Opportunity Act will come in as the buffer, and then we have to go out to fight and win the Fair Share Amendment, which is going to bring another $2 billion to public education, roads, bridges, and transportation. If you value your children, then you must value the people who take care of your children. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to thank Ms. McDonald, Ms. Stapleton, Ms. Najee for coming here tonight, and all of you for being here as well. We do have to move on the agenda as well. If you are going to be leaving, is anybody leaving? Because if so, I'll take a recess and let people leave. We're going to keep going then. Thank you. Consent agenda, which is Article 3, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Is there any members of the school committee at this time that likes to take any matters out?
Yes, I'd like to take items B, C, and D out.
Is it the form of a motion, Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, I'll make the motion to take items B, C, and D out.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Second was made by Mrs. Sullivan. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. It passes. We will take B, C, and D out. We will then take, at this time, unless any other members want to take anything out? No? So what becomes before us now in the form of a potential motion would be to address A, E, F, G, and H. Is there a motion relative to those matters?
I make a motion to approve A, E, F, G, and H.
Seconded.
Second, Mr. Homer. The motion was made by Mrs. Sullivan, it's properly seconded by Mr. Homer. All in favor of that, please raise your hand. All opposed, it hereby carries. We'll read into the record for the minutes. It's A is the approval of January 18th, 2022 school committee meeting minutes. E is the request for authorization to submit proposals and expenditures of funds. 1 is the Allison Keller Educational Technology Program Grant Award, Doug Flutie Jr. Foundation for Autism, $7,500. 2 is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Accelerate ED Early Pathway Grant, which is $175,000 even. 3 is the DESE Early College Full School Impact Planning Grant Fund Code 466, $150,000 even. And then we go to F, which is the acceptance of notifications of personnel appointments, certified personnel. We go to the following, which is G, acceptance of notification of personnel appointments non-certified. And then finally, we go to H, which is the acceptance of notification of personnel actions, leaves of absences, resignations, and retirements. We have a motion on the floor, was properly seconded relative to A, E, F, G, and H. All in favor of those, please raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Matter hereby carries. Those are confirmed. Mr. Sullivan, B, C, and D, the floor is yours.
Yes, I just wanted to mention and thank these people personally for it's all scholarships given to the students of Brockton High School. The first one, item B, is the Gene Sampson Memorial Scholarship. The amount is to be determined. The candidate graduating from Brockton High School and accepted to an accredited four-year college or university who plans a career in art education, the scholarship award is on the basis of need and merit. And I'd make a motion to approve item B.
You took them collectively, Mr. Sullivan, so you should read C and D as well.
Okay. Item C. The name of the scholarship is the Mary and Nancy Costello Memorial Scholarship. The amount is $2,000. Eligibility requirements: the candidate graduating from Brockton High School and accepted to an accredited four-year college or university. The student must be going to a study in an area of special education.
Second.
The last matter would be D, correct?
Item D, it's another scholarship. The Tony Story Jr. Memorial Scholarship, amount is $2,000. Eligibility: candidate graduating from Brockton High School that is enrolled in the IEP program and plans to pursue a career in automotive or HVAC. The scholarship award on the basis of need and merit. And it's a $2,000 award.
So there is a motion made. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Sullivan, is properly seconded by Ms. Azak relative to matters B, C, and D that were already read into the record by Mr. Sullivan. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, those matters carry unanimously. Consent agenda matters are hereby concluded. I am going to humbly ask that we consider taking unfinished business, which is Article 5, out of order at this time. Members of the school committee relative to Brockton Neighborhood Health Center, the CEO, Sue Joss, is here. Could we entertain a motion to take that matter out of order? Article 5.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sullivan, properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. All in favor of that, please raise your hand. All opposed, that matter carries. I know Sue Joss, Ms. Joss is here, and I think we're going to be doing some stuff with IT as well, so.
Is there a clicker? So just switch, what do I hit? Just tell them. I'll figure it out. All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mayor, thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, members of the school committee. As I walked into the room today, I realized that in my 28 years at the health center, I have never presented to the school committee And almost that entire 28 years, I have wanted to make this particular presentation. So we are so excited to be at this point of offering to open a school-based health center on the grounds of the high school. And we hope that I'm not here to sell you something, but that you are as excited about this for your students as I am. Okay. Oops, sorry. So the school and the high school staff in particular have been working with us on this project. So I just want to share with you some of the data that you may already know, but maybe some of you, this is new to you, to really give you an idea of the need. Immunizations on primary care access. At the start of each school year, approximately 40% of Brockton Public School students are not compliant with vaccine requirements, meaning they are not up to date with the recommended immunizations for their age groups. And at Edison Academy, the compliance rate is about 50% throughout the entire school year. Whoops, sorry. The high school uses temporary staff to provide sports physicals. And I think even more near and dear to my heart is the behavioral health side of things. Only 200 of Brockton Public Schools' 8,400 secondary students in 2020 were successfully connected to mental health services that year, in spite of what we know were huge efforts by the counselors and adjustment staff. 39% of counselors were aware of a child that year who had intentionally cut, burned, or bruised himself during the past 12 months, and 36% were aware of a child who had contemplated suicide in the past year. So this is a study that was done by an organization called Team Up that is out of Boston Medical Center. And their mission is to improve the mental health services and the integration of behavioral health services with primary care for children. And they did this study of 4 gateway cities, including Brockton as one of the 4. And it showed that during the pandemic, suicidal ideation in these 4 communities had risen to more than double the national rate prior to the pandemic. So we also know that students who have their medical, dental, behavioral health, social issues addressed and coordinated, and I'm sure any educators in the room can attest to this, they perform better academically, and that the support and treatment for mental health services while in school is particularly important to their overall academic achievement. Sorry, I just got a trigger finger here. Okay, so what do we do about it? So we have formed a group in collaboration with the school and are working, they've created their own mission, and that's to create a trusted medical home for the students of the high school here in Brockton, to provide high quality and integrated healthcare services that's equitable, comprehensive, and accessible, and that works with students to prioritize them taking charge of their own health. So the school-based health center that we're hoping to open will provide a comprehensive medical and behavioral health services, and that includes physicals, and it does include school sports physicals. So we're hoping to really take a burden off the school during preseason, and a variety of other medical services that you see there. We hope to really take some burden off your school nurses with urgent care visits, which is basically sick visits that they can refer over to us as they want. So we'll be drawing labs here. We'll be offering a variety of screenings and treatment, STIs, and most importantly, possibly, is urgent and short-term counseling on the behavioral health side. So the screenings that we plan to offer are oral health. We will not be providing dental on site, but we will screen and refer. The same with vision. Social determinants of health. We're going to be working with students as they come in for their appointments to identify needs such as food and housing insecurity, transportation barriers, and other needs that they and their families may have. We'll be doing a mental health or a behavioral health screening for a variety of issues, including ADHD, anxiety, depression, and conduct disorders, as well as a substance abuse screening. So our team will include, and this is the initial team, we're actually hoping to grow and expand this over time, but there'll be an office coordinator, a pediatric nurse practitioner to handle the medical side, a licensed practical nurse, a community health worker who will help the students navigate a variety of issues that may come up on their screenings and get them connected into care, and a licensed behavioral health clinician. And the behavioral health clinician is one that, in particular, that I expect to grow to multiple staff fairly quickly. So if I could ask Mike to come up. Mike Jacques is our facilities director. And some of you have seen these slides, but he's just going to quickly go over the location of the site.
So on the screen before you is the proposed location of the clinic site. It is located southwest of this building on the grass strip, which is very close to the west property line of the school. It's indicated in the yellow box there. Okay. There's a floor plan and a 3D view of the clinic. It'll be comprised of 3 exam rooms, 3 behavioral health counseling rooms, as well as patient support rooms, waiting room, nurse's station, utility rooms, etc. And the finished colors, we worked with the city and the school to decide upon a color scheme for the clinic. We chose to do it in the school colors, and it would contain both the school's mascot as well as the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center logo. All right, thank you.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
First of all, I want to thank you, Sue. When Mike was here in the past, I shared with all of you, Neighborhood Health Center was the first to step up to help the city during COVID. As you recall, almost 2 years ago, they were the ones outside of Brockton High in the parking lot providing testing services. And then they pivoted over to the Shaw Center after we spent $1 million out of the CARES Act and got reimbursed. But they've been wonderful partners. I support this wholeheartedly as someone that has three kids, 2 in the system. My wife's a PA. There's a need here in the city of Brockton, and if we can do a one-stop shopping here on the grounds of Brockton High, this is just for the students, it's not for the staff. Neighborhood Health Center has made that clear to us, but this is something that's wonderful. I also want to just thank all of you, because when it was initially proposed, it was on the other side of the building. I was on the parking lot side, and that was not the right location. So to the credit of Sue and her team, they met with us, and we walked the land in the back, which is the new proposed location. What I said is, Mayor, I don't want it to be obtrusive or offensive to the band that goes out and uses that land. So the entire land is not being utilized. As you can see, it's a small portion tucked up. There is a river in the back that abuts our land and also the Bertarelli land, so we have to be subject to, of course, the Wetlands Protection Acts. But I want to thank Dr. Cobbs. I see Dr. Cobbs here in the audience, and Jim has been wonderful on this. But this is a game changer for us. The other reason why it's so great in the back, it's, listen, medical health should be private, right? It shouldn't be at the front of the building where your peers could see you. So this is, you can access the back side of Brockton High, coming out either as your green side or even the fine arts side, and you'll be able to go to a private setting. The door will be on that side as well for the students. So Sue is here on behalf of her board and Neighborhood Health Center. Any questions for the CEO of Neighborhood Health Center? Ms. Azak, please.
Sorry, thank you for the presentation. So I just have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
So I see the location has been moved over to the opposite side. So is that where the ACF rink is? So the
rink is
ACF
here.
ring's right there,
The
okay.
pool is here. Originally, it was proposed to go over there.
So it's where the tent was
Yes.
last, okay.
Yes.
And approximately, I don't remember offhand, how big is this building, square footage wise?
That's my question.
The building is approximately 3,000 square feet, 64 by 48.
And that's just a one level or a two level? One
It
level?
is a single-level modular structure. It's comprised of 4 trailers that are built in a factory out in Georgia. They're brought up. We join all 4 trailers together, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between, that they were once trailers, once they're all together.
Okay. And another question, I'm sure parents are going to be asking this. So we're dealing with minors. So how is that handled when a minor is seeking medical attention without their parents' permission? Like that's a little bit of a gray area.
Yeah, great question, and I should have addressed that. Massachusetts has very strict treatment of minors regulations, and we will be following all of those. Most of the services we will be offering will require parental consent, and we will handle that probably virtually when the student is able to come on their own, but there will be times the parent comes as well. There are a very limited number of services that Massachusetts allows the teen to consent to without the parent. And we follow that all the time at our main site, so we're definitely will follow it here as well.
Okay, because I took a screenshot of the screenings. So as far as like oral health, things like that. So what happens if they don't have insurance?
We have about 25% of our patients at the main site of the health center don't have insurance, so we're really used to dealing with that. Very few children under the age of 18 in Massachusetts don't have insurance, but for those that the few that might not, we do have access to the state's health safety net funding to cover the cost of their care.
Okay. Again, I mean, I sat in on that when it was presented to us. It's a wonderful idea, but we had some basic questions. And is this the time as far as like, electricity, the utilities, things like that? Will the neighborhood health be responsible for those, whereas the building is on our property? So is it something that we're going to be responsible for? Like who's taking care of just, the everyday routine maintenance expenses?
Yeah, I can answer that because I did speak to Sue and Dr. Maria Celli and Mike as well relative to the concerns. The Neighborhood Health Center is going to pay for the electricity, the utilities relative to this. In terms of any liability insurance, because we're self-insured as a city, there'll be, much like they did at the Shaw Center, there's a certificate of insurance, and we'll be indemnified. Our legal staff, Attorney Mello and Attorney Bridges on the city side will work with Neighborhood Health Center on this. I think the other question that was brought up, and I don't think it would ever happen, but I remember the former Ward 1, Mr. Minicello, Attorney Minicello, brought up about could we have the first right of refusal relative to if they abandon the property. It probably will never happen they'll abandon, but I know Sue and I talked about that as well, so I don't know if you want to talk about that at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say, first of all, we don't do business that way, and we've been trying for 20 years to put a site at the school, so I can't imagine that we would abandon it, but we absolutely would give you first right of refusal if you wanted the building in that event.
Okay, because I'm just looking at it from a real estate point of view. It's their building on our land. So as long as we have the proper coverage, because it is $1 million plus for this building, I believe, or around $1 million for them to put it together, the cost of the actual building, like, as long as we have the proper insurance and coverage, we're not responsible for the building. If something happens to it, it is on our land.
It's actually the city.
It's on the city's land, but just as long as, I know that was a concern a few members had brought up, is it's someone else's building on our the city's property. So, as long as we have the proper.
Yeah, I mean, I can opine on that. Attorney Bridges, Megan Bridges, City Solicitor, and Peter Mello have already talked about this. They'll work with Neighborhood Health Center to dot the i's, cross the t's, do any legal document, lease agreement, whatever it is, indemnification agreement, affidavit of, incorporation, whatever it is. But they'll do that. They already know that. Mike and I have already talked to both of them about that.
Perfect. Are they looking for any specific parking spaces for this, or is it just whatever parking is available? The building's going right.
Pretty much.
Right in front of it, but isn't that where the busing goes?
No, the buses are closer now, out here.
Oh, okay.
The sweeper buses just park here, but this is pretty much empty,
Okay,
pretty much 80% of the time, so usually just meetings like this,
sure.
events at night.
And we don't,
That part of the lot, but during the day, that part of the lot's not.
we don't need the spaces to be specifically designated to us. I think there's plenty of space there.
Perfect. I mean, there is a need for it. There is a need as far as medical attention for our students, and it makes it more accessible for them to be able to have it readily available right at the school, so they won't have to miss, days of school to be able to go to a doctor's appointment. So, but thank you for the presentation. Hopefully I answered some of the questions. I know we had questions last time, so I was trying to remember all of them, but thank you again.
Thank you.
Any other members of Ms. Ayers?
First of all, I can totally understand why for 28 years you've been wanting to put this up at the high school, for sure. I guess my question is, the statistics that you shared with us earlier, are those statistics pre-pandemic? And would they be worse now because of the pandemic in terms of mental health? Or has it pretty much maintained the same? I know that I've heard, and we've heard how there's been such an increase in anxiety, depression, all of those things on our kids. And so I'm wondering, are those percentages accurate now during the pandemic, or those pre-pandemic numbers?
They're during the pandemic numbers. So the Team Up Suicidal Ideation study was done throughout, month to month, throughout 2020.
Okay.
So you did see it shoot up to twice the national average pre-pandemic. And then the other one was actually data that was given to us by the school system, and that, I believe, was 2020 as well.
And the only other question I have is, right now, I know this is for Brockton High students. Do you see it opening up for other high school students if it's a success, or for other middle school students? I look at this like, if it's going to be an urgent care center, what if there's a middle schooler that doesn't have a primary care physician and their mom and dad don't really have another place for them to go? Are we going to make that available to them if it becomes a question?
So we're happy to do it. I think that's your decision. We are limited to children because the staff there will be pediatric providers, but we're happy to see any ages that you decide you want us to see up to about age 21.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And when we did take the walking tour with Dr. Celli as well, we mentioned that the middle school, specifically the sports physicals is a key component. A lot of middle school sports were brought back. Football was reinstituted finally after decades. So Sue answered my question that day the same way she just did. Absolutely, it's up to us as a body, but they want to provide care to the kids here in Brockton.
And it includes the Key Center,
Yeah, oh yeah.
includes Edison Academy, all our pathways would be part of this as well.
Thank you.
So we'll probably ask to pretty much do the logo, probably the Brockton Public Schools logo instead of just a box of logos, so.
Yeah, whatever you want,
It
it's fine.
incorporates, it's because it's for all schools, it's just located at Brockton High School, but it would include all our kids.
And so, sorry, one last question. What is the ETA on when we think it'll be opened?
We're hoping for June or July.
Excellent.
Yeah. Because it's modular, so it's
Easy.
we're already in construction.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, please.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I just have, what would the cost be to the Brockton Public Schools?
The cost, we're taking on all the costs, so I would say just incidental. I'm not sure that no.
There's nothing.
No, it's really no cost, there's none.
No cost at all?
I mean, Mr.
Free.
Sullivan, we're not even going to be doing custodial services there. It's
Yeah.
their building. They're assuming any and all, much like they did at the Shaw Center when they stepped up to the plate.
The only other, I thought you mentioned the staff as well. I know the high school students. Did you say staff? Or did I miss anything?
We can't see the staff because the staff at our building will be pediatric staff, and they're not qualified to see adults.
Okay, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any other members of the committee have any questions? Mr. Rodriguez, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I didn't see anything mentioned about how diverse is this staff going to be, knowing that the city of Brockton is very diverse with bilingual services. Is that something that you're going to actually implement, making sure that the staff there actually speak another language?
Absolutely. At all of our other sites, 2/3 of our staff are from the cultures reflected in Brockton and speak the languages.
And my second question is, how did we come up with this idea to locate this service right here at the high school? And what benefit, besides the students getting medical services, what is the benefit to Brockton Neighborhood Health Center? What is the benefit? What are you guys getting out of this service that you're going to provide? How did we come to this point of saying, let's put this medical service right here at the high school?
So we are one of the few gateway communities that doesn't have a school-based health center, and it's just part of our mission. We're here to serve the community, and this, in my mind, has been a gap for decades in the city of Brockton. So we don't have anything to gain from it other than what we're already gaining of our mission of providing services to the community, and we think that being in the school or right next to the school is particularly important, especially for high school students and especially around the behavioral health needs that they have. So,
And dental is a big part of health. Why aren't we just referring that? Why can't we actually offer that? Actually, Brockton Neighborhood Health Center offer it?
the equipment, the X-ray, the ability to have someone who can read the X-rays. I wouldn't say no, never, but that it's just an expense to set up a whole new program that's not medical, that we just don't have right now. We'd certainly be open to thinking that through once we recover from the expense of the initial opening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Any other members of the committee?
You could go ahead. All right. So a few questions. According to the agenda, this is a potential vote, but I heard you said you're already in construction. Did I get that wrong or right?
So we've got the modular unit in construction, but we do need your vote to proceed with the groundwork that needs to happen.
Okay. And then another question just from the data that you gave, especially the one about the one about suicide. You said that was from 2022.
No, it was from 2020.
2020, thank you. But you're only going to have one behavioral health clinician. You said that will multiply. But my concern is you're just having a 3,000 square feet, right? There's going to be a total of 6 rooms. So when the demand increases, what happens then? Are you guys then going to come back to try and propose a bigger place, or like how are referrals going to happen when the demand increases?
So if you see on the floor plan there are 3 counseling rooms. So we can have 3 full-time licensed counselors. We're starting with 1. And I would say that I don't see us anytime in the next several years physically adding to the space, but I do see the potential for us to keep increasing the hours so that perhaps we offer evenings and weekends if it does get that busy.
So right now your hours are going to, what are the hours?
We're, for the most part, going to mirror school hours, and we are going to try to get open 2 evenings a week in addition within the first couple months of being open.
Okay.
And then we'll just take it from there based on the volume and where the need seems to be.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Homer, please.
Thank you. I was just going to ask about the hours, and I was going to ask if it was envisioned that it was open 12 months and servicing students' vaccinations and needs in the summer months
Yes.
before the start of the school year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're actually extremely busy in the summer with physicals, so I anticipate that a lot of the visits we do during the summer will be with parents' physicals.
And primarily, do you see the student population that would be served would mostly be coming from the high school population during the school hours, obviously, versus the middle school population, the other kids that wouldn't have access to that during the daytime hours?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's up to what you want. We're willing to see the students, all ages, anytime you want. I think the logistics may be on your end to get younger children to that site during the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Homer. Any additional, Mr. Sullivan, follow-up?
Just one final question. How would a student get to you? Do they have to go through the nurse and get referred, or can they walk right in?
So during the school hours, the school, the nurses and the adjustment counselors we'll be making referrals over because obviously you can't have kids just wandering out of the school. After hours, the kids can make appointments and come on their own with all the parental consents obviously still required. And we already have had great meetings with Linda Cahill and some of your adjustment staff to start to just talk through the workflow and logistics of how to make that work.
So I'll just add, several times a week now, we have to call in the mobile crisis because of students that are having emotional issues, breakdowns, and it takes a long time for mobile crisis to get to us. Having this opportunity right on site, to be able to have a student seen right away rather than either, if mobile crisis right now is not available, we then have to send the child to the hospital, and then they're in the emergency room for hours. And it's just not a good setup that we have right now because of all the issues we're having with obviously mental health and the struggles from COVID. So having this on site would provide much quicker services for students' social emotional needs than what we provide now. I mean, the adjustment counselors do a great job, but when a student is in real crisis, we have to call mobile crisis, and if they can't report, then we have to call 911. And that's more traumatic for a student because then you have the ambulance come, the fire department, and then they go to the emergency room, and we all know what it's been like in emergency rooms the last few years. So this provides a huge benefit for our adjustment counselors and our students to really help get the students the services much quickly than we can now.
Follow up, Ms. Ayers.
I just wanted to make one comment, and I know I've said this before, but we legitimately, Brockton High School is a small college. Colleges have health centers. This is by far overdue for what we've needed for a long time. To your point, Superintendent Thomas, to be able to respond to a student in need quickly and not have to wait for emergency services is really going to make a huge difference in terms of how we impact them positively for them to actually go back and wean their way into the classroom. Because there is that embarrassing factor, the fact that you've called everybody in the world and now they're like, I wish I didn't tell anybody what was going on. And so this allows them more privacy and it's respectful for what they're going through. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
And just a final comment to that is we're hoping it's not all crisis too. We're hoping that by us being there and having full-time counselors that we can avert some of the crisis level.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
I
Follow
think
up,
from the
Mrs. Rivas
school
Bennett.
side, I'm thinking logistically, what are we doing when students want to opt out? Because I can see myself as a high schooler just being like, hey, I'm going to go over there and staying there for like however long. What is the logistics that's going to happen? Because it sounds like they only have a certain capacity. And as we know, we're a 4,000 plus school. So I heard you say that appointments will probably happen after school, but logistically, how is this going to be operated where students are just going to get a referral from the nurse and adjustment counselor? But how about if you're super full? Like, are students just going to be waiting? What's happening logistically? Because we want to make sure that students are still getting their time in the classrooms and not using this as a source of opting out or et cetera.
So I'm not sure that I have the final answer on that yet, but our staff are already meeting with your staff, nursing and adjustment counselors to really plan that out. So it may be that they put an appointment into our schedule. We're certainly happy to take students who are ill or have behavioral health issues that are urgent, but we do expect that the nurses and the adjustment counselors will also book some students in. And we'll have follow-up visits as well, both on the medical and behavioral health side, where one visit doesn't do it, so we may set the students up for an ongoing series of sessions, and those will have to be coordinated through the school as well to make sure that they're not missing classes.
So if I heard you right, it sounds like the students will have appointments, but if it's a crisis, they will be priority, and the ones that have the appointment will
Yeah.
probably have to hold off.
We always get crisis patients in. It's, just what healthcare does, so there's always juggling.
I think logistics, it's gonna have to be a bigger conversation, because I can quickly see it being a lot of students waiting, and then the communication like, oh, well, this student's priority right now, can you hold off? And then that student's losing classroom minutes because they're waiting for their appointment, but then we have a crisis that is priority at that same time. So I think that's definitely a conversation that I think needs to be better, with a more concrete answer in the communication with students and nurse and adjustment counselors with you guys, because you guys are on the other side, and as we know, this building's so big. So when students coming from the red building all the way to over there, like, I'm thinking about how is the student going to waste their time and waiting outside? That's what I'm thinking.
No, what's going to happen is they triage, and so the nurse's office up here has been doing this a long time with 4,000, sometimes 1,500 kids. So they go through a process, and we can have Linda Cahill come and explain how they triage each situation. So every student that visits the nurse's office is going to be referred to the neighborhood health center. It'd be, they'd obviously follow up with the parent. Probably 80% of the students that visit the nurse's office every day are sent back to class. I was probably one of those in high school that liked to visit the nurse's office often. And the nurses are very talented in figuring out what students are there to basically get out of class and not really need medical service. And then, so I'd definitely have Linda Cahill come, because the nurses at the high school have been doing it for a long time, and the way they triage and make sure that students get back to class, and the ones that actually have to, go over to the neighborhood health center, but make appointments as well with all. But we can have Linda come and explain what the process they use now. Yep.
A point of information, I was in Spanish class in 11th grade with the superintendent, and the days we had quizzes in Spanish, he had to go to the nurse. I can attest to that. It happened quite a bit. Any additional questions? We'll go to Ms. Azak, followed by Mr. Rodriguez.
Just a quick question. So I vaguely remember, like, the last meeting we had discussed if this is something that's going to take off and it's going to be very successful, that it's something that we can work into our future plans when we are able to rebuild Brockton High, to give them their own little area. And then this is part of a grant, correct?
No, we actually started the whole process because we were applying for a grant, a federal grant, and we didn't get it.
Okay.
So this is out of our own pocket right now.
Okay, because I just wanted to make sure, like, what were the requirements for the grant? Like, how long does that building, like, how long, this has to, certain requirements, things have to stay in
Right.
place a certain amount of time. So I just wanted to make sure if there was a time limit on this.
Right. So we're
But-
disappointed not to get the grant, but it does simplify everything because we don't have any of those rules.
Okay, so I mean, we did discuss potentially, when we are able to rebuild Brockton High, to probably have a designated area rather than have the building out there. So a lot of great questions tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Touch base on the logistics. How are we going to handle transportations, for, a student that's at the May Institute once we open, or the Key Center, the Huntington, somebody that's in crisis? Is BPS going to transport these kids by bus? Is the neighborhood health center responsible for that? And then also the supervision of this child that's in there who's going to be accompanying these students.
Well, the parent would have to meet them when they're in crisis, like they do now at the hospital. And if they were in that kind of crisis from another outside of here, then like if it was at the May Center, which is now going to be, the Keith Center is moving to the Huntington, then they would have to basically go, it would be transported through like they are now with the ambulance. It would not be through regular transportation, and then the parent has to meet them like they do now. If they go to the emergency room, the parent would have to meet them. We wouldn't use a bus or van for a crisis situation.
Regular appointments, somebody being referred. The kid can't
I
get
mean,
in on
regular
weekend.
appointments that would be after school, we could talk about how we would transport students there to have, to give them the ability to get there from the May Center, but I don't think regular appointments would be scheduled during the school day, because students need to be in school and not miss classes, so, it would be, they would need a regular appointment for a physical or something like that would have to take place after school, during the summer when they're getting ready to, but I think during the day, we wouldn't be transporting them out of their building to go for an appointment because they need to be in school.
And also, we have night school. are those students not able to acquire these services, or are you going to expand your hours to include that we have?
So we are planning to be open 2 evenings. Night school, if it's still pediatric patients, we're happy to take them. But if it's adults, it's all pediatric staff at that site.
Yeah, so night school, again, adult, pediatrics, up to what age again?
We can go to 21.
Okay.
But beyond that, they really
Right,
need
exactly.
to reassign
And
to an
then-
adult provider.
Those students also they could be seen during the day because they wouldn't
Sure.
obviously be in school. So we could have day hours for them and the 2-night time as well.
Any other questions? Mike, I just had a question if I could. So in terms of this project, you're going to have to go to tech review for the city of Brockton. Where do you stand
think you did.
relative to tech review with the planning board and the like?
As far as tech review, we are on their agenda for February 28th.
Okay.
And then with a favorable outcome from tech review, we'll be moving on to the planning board in April. We've already submitted information to the Conservation Commission.
Because of that brook.
Yes.
Yep.
Regarding the brook, we're within the 100-foot buffer zone where we're building, but we don't expect any problems. We've been told there shouldn't be any problems. It's just a matter of formalities. And after we go through planning, we'll be able to break ground on the site. We're looking at site work lasting approximately 4 weeks, assembly of the unit on site 2 weeks, and then probably 30-plus days for licensure.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I'm just going to read the actual verbiage into the record if I could. So it's Article 5, unfinished business, discussion and potential vote regarding the site development plans for Brockton Neighborhood Health Center satellite location. So with that being said, what would come before us is if we want to approve the location and the plan as presented here tonight. What I would also say that any agreement, there has to be a written signed agreement between Neighborhood Health Center and the city. I would sign it in 2 ways. I'd sign it as the CEO, as the mayor. I would also sign it as the chair of the school committee, and Mike would sign it in his role as the superintendent of the schools. So anything that we talked about, electricity, first right of refusal, all that, Attorney Mello and Attorney Bridges, before would be in final form to execute. It would incorporate therein. Is there a motion relative to the matter of the location, which again is a new location compared to, and I want to recognize Councilor D'Agostino, thank you for being here, Councilor. It's a different location than the original legislative body last session. It's in the back, as you know. So the motion, if you choose to do it tonight, would be to accept that location and to approve the plans as presented by the CEO, Sue Joss. A motion?
I make a motion to approve the site development plan for Brockton Neighborhood Health Center satellite location, the location and the second part of what you said.
Okay. The services rendered as
Services
stated tonight.
rendered.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion made, and just on the motion, I do want to just say what I think what Cynthia and Tony both shared with us. We want to talk about that logistics, the process and stuff, and I know the superintendent and Dr. Linda Cahill, Director of School Nurses, she's on top of this too. So there is a motion on the floor, it was properly seconded. All in favor of this, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. So it reflects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 2 relative to that. So it does pass on a 6-2 margin. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I do, before we get to the superintendent, I want to recognize, of course, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Sue Zakowicz. Thank you for being here, Doctor. Cindy Burns, Principal of Brockton High. But probably the best person that we want to introduce tonight is the Brockton High Student Representative, Ellen. I'd like to have the student representative join us here tonight. This is our new student rep for the school committee. Please join us here next to the vice chair. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hi, thank you. Sorry. So good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen, and I'm a senior at Brockton High School. So as you all know, this year didn't start as well as it should have. Everything pretty much just went downhill, and I would say that the reason is not only because we missed 1.5 years at in-person school, but it's because today's freshmen didn't get to feel like grown-ups. They didn't get to go to 8th grade and feel like the older kids or the more responsible ones. So they didn't get to feel like, so once they were in high school, they didn't know how they were expected to act like, and pretty much everything was new to them. But the good news is that we had a bad start, and it was just a bad start. It's not that they were doing bad now. Even though everything's not perfect, I think we're all still making progress. So as a student, I would like to mention some of the positive things that I've noticed at Brockton High School. So at the start, most of the students were unaware of the rules and the regulations that we had, which were basically made to keep all of us safe. But with the enforcement of the same rules, I think that we're getting used to it all. Like right now, I see everyone wearing their IDs, the bathrooms are less crowded, and students, most of them are where they're supposed to be. And I think another positive thing is that with the help of everyone who's involved in creating all the different types of activities, for example, like the senior basketball game, or the time we had people perform at the cafeterias, everyone got to get together and bond, and I think we need more activities like those. And another big positive thing at our school is the wonderful opportunities and the benefits of them. For example, I'm not saying that the activities or the opportunities change people's lives. I see them in my friends and in my peers. For example, one friend of mine always mentions how much joining cross country helped him improve in his academics because his friends always encourage him and help him to do better. Or my friend, she's in the swim team, and with the help of her coaches and, you know, with her big achievements, she's earned so many scholarships from colleges. And another friend of mine, she actually got to decide what she wants to major in just because of joining the Law and Debate Club of our school. So that's just the positive thing about the opportunities. Another positive thing that I would want to talk about is this event that 10 seniors and I are planning with Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Burns. We are basically planning a one-day event, which is actually going to turn into a club. It's going to be about topics about like the importance of long-term thinking, or what a 4-year education can do to a child, or respect and communication. And this will be for the freshmen and the sophomores. We're all basically working with the same goal. We want to bring a change to the school. And even though, like I said, this will be a one-day event, we want to turn this into an after-school club where there will be workshops for different topics like social media, mental health, or college applications. But other than that, I would just like to thank all the teachers and the core staff, the staff members who always do their best to keep the school environment safe and happy. For example, in the morning when I do the announcements with Mrs. Burns and Mr. G, just hearing their positive attitudes and their messages, I know that it just sets a whole different mood for the school. Like, we start with positivity, or seeing the administration, Mrs. Marion or Mrs. Bosco, just saying hi to everyone, or just having a big smile on their faces. I know they're like making a change in one student's life, or in one student's day. And I just know that I can go on with naming so many other staff members and teachers who do their best and to try to make the students happy. But I just want to thank everyone, you guys. I want to thank the staff members, the teachers, the students, the coaches, everyone who are doing their best right now, because I definitely do see a change, even though we had a bad start. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So Ellen, first of all, we welcome you. We are so honored that you're joining us. You bring passion, you bring views that are here, right? Because you're here every day, and that's helpful to all of us as elected officials. So thank you, welcome,
Thank
that's
you.
your seat, and we really look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You in?
I am green. That's the best building. I'm just gonna say that.
All right, right here, class of 91.
Hey, red's the second best. That's okay.
All right, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's excellent, and we're really honored to have you. Thank you. I'm now going to go to, we're going to go back to Article 4, which is a report of superintendent of schools, Mike Thomas. Mike.
So next, we have the first reading of the district calendar. which basically shows the start of the school year and all the holidays. This calendar doesn't include the supplemental, that's the dates for parent conferences, the in-service days. This is just the first read for the district calendar, which is obviously the start of the school year and all the holidays, the legal holidays that we recognize. And obviously election day is in there, which is a day off. So this is the first read, and if anybody has any questions about it.
Any questions for the superintendent relative to the first read of the calendar? Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry.
Do you need a motion on that, or we just?
No, it's the first read. We'd need a motion the next time.
No other questions? We'll move on, Mike.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Susan Zakowitz, Interim Deputy Superintendent, is going to give you an update on the district-wide in-service we had on the 20th of January. Is that right? My 20th of January, regarding which focused on active reading and writing. Welcome, Sue. You have a PowerPoint, right?
I do.
All right.
Yep. All right. Good evening, everybody. I hope I can bring you to some of the instructional parts. It's been such a diverse evening with all different topics. So let me remind everybody again. I know you hear us say this all the time, but the superintendent's 3 focus areas are around effective instruction, active reading and writing, and positive relationships. What I'm going to share with you tonight really targets the first 2. So let me take you through what just happened. So before, in an earlier presentation, I shared with you this, and I say this all the time, what we do in the schools really matters. And so a quick reminder about the impact of teachers, principals, and district leadership. Okay, maybe not. All right. All right, we got another clicker there, Cheryl? All right, here we go. So let's, I've shared some of this with you before, quick reminder. Teachers matter more to student achievement than any other aspect of schooling. In fact, they account for 33% of student performance gains in 1 year, which can add 3.8 months of added learning in a year. That's powerful. Add to that what the principals bring, because the teachers add to their classroom. The principals bring a school-wide perspective. 25% of student performance gains in 1 year can add 2.7 months of added learning in a year. And the district, what the district does matters. And so one of the best, most powerful lines is this: focused leadership. When a district focuses on what they're doing relentlessly, doing less and doing it better. So what is essential for schools? Far more purposeful reading and writing in every discipline, or authentic literacy. So with that in mind, let me share with you a brief snapshot of what happened on January 20th across the district. We used the in-service day for K-12 academic in-service. And I have to say, to know how old I am, I started in the district in 1975. And so you don't have to turn around and look at me like that. It's just turn around, Mrs. Sullivan. And this is, oh, it was? And this was really the first time as a district, K-12. We've done great professional development, but this is one where everybody had the same focus for the entire in-service. And it was on active reading and writing using multiple selections. So, oh, geez, no wonder Sue had trouble with this. It just keeps have a mind of its own. All right, I'm not going to turn it again until we go through this. So the district-wide in-service, here was the structure of the day. It began with an introduction that Mike and I did with everybody, and kudos to our tech staff, because we did this live. And there were 3 different start times, so it was quite an experience. And the fact that our tech team pulled this off was fabulous. So we are grateful to the work they did. So Mike and I started it off with an overview, and then everybody went into their grade span. So I'm going to tell you what each of those grade spans were in a minute. So K-5 was one group, 6 to 8 was one group, the high schools were another group. and they learned this particular activity, and then they broke up into either grade level or department level meetings about how do we implement this. So it was extremely organized. So let me share with you what it looked like for the day, because this is really what happens. I mean, you get to stay, you know, you're the policymakers in this. Well, what does it look like in schools? What's happening? And this might be something that you're hearing about from people in the schools. So first of all, Mike and I shared what the objectives were for the teachers for the day. We always try to model the same practice we expect of our educators, and you start with, what is the target? If everybody knows what the target is, the objective, it's easier to hit it. So first was an objective that we understand what we'll be doing, why we're doing this, how it will be implemented, and what the follow-up will be. And then we actually modeled the active reading and writing using multiple selections at grade levels. And then finally, they broke down and discussed with colleagues how it would be implemented effectively. So what we did is we shared across K-12 a specific strategy that was grade level appropriate, though, focused on our second focus area, active reading and writing. And then here's how we're going to roll this out. And this is what the superintendent and I was sharing with everybody. And then I'm going to show you how it broke up. So what you'll be seeing in schools already, it has already started, is we are not leaving anything to chance. It's with a very explicit plan. Every Wednesday, now we hope obviously people are focusing on active reading and writing every day. However, what we are really intentionally focusing on with this activity will be something that we can implement, monitor, and compare student work. So every Wednesday in classes, this is going to be done. Grade level appropriate readings are being picked, and a consistent writing format is being provided, and the students will be writing it right into the laptops, because that is what they're asked to do actually when they take the MCAS. So we're trying to give them deliberate practice. There's great long-term gains in tackling something like this, because these are literacy and thinking skills. It's not just about a test prep. It's rigorous grade level appropriate skills, and it will help students be successful in all of their classes. By providing them with repeated practice over time, these become thinking routines, so they know how to tackle a problem. All right, so what did it look like specifically? I'll share with you a quick snapshot of each grade level. At the high school, for all high school faculty, Brockton High and all the Pathway high schools, they received a presentation on active reading and writing using multiple selections, which was presented by Maria Lafort. And she's one of the instructional folks working with us this year. And then that was followed by meetings in the departments facilitated by the department heads about the implementation. And Carrie Kopp, the associate principal at the high school, took care of all of the tech links to get that out to everybody. Oh, jeez. At the middle school level, there was now you'll notice the same skill is being presented at all levels. It's just different at each level so it would be grade level appropriate. So for middle school faculty, they had an active reading and writing strategies presented by Michelle Connors, Candace McGann, and Jody Nelson, and that was also followed by meetings in departments facilitated by the department heads, and those links were sent out by Michelle and all of the various directors. And then at the elementary school level, they also had a presentation on how active reading and writing strategies using multiple readings were presented, and was presented by Michelle Morrissey-Smith, who was the K-5 literacy ELA coordinator. And that was followed by grade level meetings, and those links were sent out by the principals. Jeez, it's flipping on its own. Sue Joss was, this was exactly what she was struggling with. We need a new clicker for the future. Plans for follow-up. This is not being left to chance. Every Wednesday, it already started, teachers are implementing this active reading and writing activity and a math strategy, which is also based on this. I'm going to show you a quick example. Student work is being collected, reviewed, and discussed in the PLCs and department meetings using our own BPS student work protocol. So very structured. The key point is this. How do you learn something? Every musician and athlete in this room knows the answer to that question. It is practice, practice, practice. You can't talk something through. You have to practice it over and over again. So this is giving our students repeated, deliberate practice on important skills. And then, maybe not, There. This is really about focus and accountability because student outcomes is really what we need to focus on. It is our collective responsibility as a district to make sure that our students are succeeding. It's really, this is an action plan. When we all target something, consistently teach it to the kids, support each other in doing it, hold ourselves to high standards, and give our students multiple exposures to this and repeated deliberate practice, we can make a difference. We will make a difference. So let me show you the... Well, maybe... Okay, here we go. Try this again. All right, so at all of the high schools, they receive this literacy workshop. And I'm just taking out a couple of slides from each one because it was obviously much more detailed than this. But what I want you to see what it looks like. So students would give, the teachers, we modeled for the teachers how to teach this to the students. So they were given 2 readings, and the teachers were taught how to teach the kids how to determine the purpose for reading. Because you read differently when you know what the purpose is. How many times did you say, why do I have to read this? You deserve to know that. So knowing the purpose for reading is the first step in this. So you can see how the high school did it, and they broke it out with a good graphic organizer. Oh, jeez. This is bizarre. All right. So this is actually, the notes you see inside it were from as it was being worked through. There were 2 readings that people used, and then the kids would be doing this where, what is your purpose? The purpose of these particular readings would describe how the lives of immigrants are portrayed in these 2 articles, and then they provide their evidence for each of these. And by setting up a graphic organizer like this, the kids are planning out. They're not just sitting down and just taking a stab at writing something. It makes them plan something out in advance. Then we go to what it looks like when you plan out your actual writing. So they have a graphic organizer for, it's like their map, their writing map. All right, that's at the high school. Now you'll see a similar approach at the middle school. They had the English language arts, did, first of all, a review of the steps of active reading and writing, and here's what they laid out. And then look at see the similarity, but it's grade level appropriate with the readings. They had to actively read the prompt to determine the purpose for reading. Imagine the power of this. So think about a student. Follow the journey of a student going through the Brockton Public Schools. If they get the same process over and over and over again, so when a teacher says, okay, I'm going to give you this reading, how do you determine, what are you reading this for? What's the purpose of the reading? They're gonna take this with them year after year after year after year. And it's messy, right? This is them as they try to figure it out. And so now they're planning out their writing. This means in math. Math is about thinking. It's not just about numbers, it's about thinking and problem solving. So the focus was for all students. Engage in active reading and writing routines and activities with a mathematical purpose. So they're using, here's a math example. The steps to success, notice how they have to read it, they have to organize their thinking, and then the teachers were provided and will be teaching a 3-read strategy where they're using something that they can they're really organizing their thinking throughout. In K-5, and you think, geez, reading and writing in multiple sources? Yep. And I just think it's so clear. First of all, there's an active, the steps to active reading and writing are laid out, and you can see how it's, again, different at every level, but the message is the same. And then Michelle Morrissey Smith did this, modeled how students would actively read by using a process that's called 2-column notes. So now it's not being left to chance. Like, you don't want it so that, are you lucky enough to have the teacher that knows how to teach this strategy? It shouldn't be left to that. It should be this has now been shared across the district. So all students will receive the process. It's really a thinking skill. And she modeled for everybody a suggested response to the prompt and how a student would edit and revise their work in this. Oh, jeez. And then I'm just giving you just a couple because we just started this, but I thought it would be important for you to see this. This is from our Brockton Virtual Learning Academy. So lest you think it can't be done in a virtual way, it most certainly can. Look at how the kids are highlighting. Now, what you see blocked out is the kids' names, but look how they're using the highlighting virtually. They're engaging with the text, and it's the kids' questions that are on the side. And you'll see, when you go through, you can see that the student is saying, how do we teach young kids to use technology in good ways? That's a good question. And I laughed when I read the last question the student wrote. These articles was from a program that we use called Newsella. And the question the student asked is, Newsella is a good name, but what does it mean? So, it just shows you what the kids are thinking when they go through. And this was an excerpt from another student's paper, but look how he's thinking. This is pretty cool. He's reading about how the internet changes our brains. And can you see his question? He's like, oh, is this good or bad? That's a great question. So it's showing you how the kids are engaging with this. And the last is just principals are already sending me examples. At the Davis, this is a grade 1 class already using the 2-column notes. You can see it on the students' papers. I think that's pretty amazing, and that they're already focused on this. And in fact, the principal, in fact, responded when she sent me this. She sent a note back to the teacher, and so Mrs. Campbell had written back and said, super, kudos, love it, way to go, grade 1, keep up the great work. And I think, I hope you feel the same, because I think it's a powerful activity that will improve students' thinking and prepare them in ways that they need, not only for the MCAS, but to be successful well beyond, their time in the Brockton Public Schools. So I think I can find, it's going to the end anyway, so it doesn't have time to stop. It's just going to go right through. So I actually had a slide that said any questions, but I guess you can't ask any because the slide is no longer there.
Thank you, Sue. We good?
Thank you, Dr. Zackwitz.
Thanks, Sue. We appreciate it. It was a great in-service, and then going to visit the schools and seeing the kids doing the work and the teachers engaged and focused on it it's been great. And I have several more walkthroughs planned, so it's been great to see what's going on. So thank you to Sue and the team that put this all together, and the teachers and staff for following through. It's been really good. Next, we want to have Mr. DiAgostino. You want to come up to the podium, because I want to. So our former vice chair of the school committee, who spent 6 years with us, is now the ward counselor for Ward 3? Yes. 3? Yes, I always get Ward 3 in the city council. But Mark served the school committee so well in a very difficult time. He came on, and I think the first year, he was excited about, I remember he and I talking that he came on to the school committee and really wanted to put things in place, in which he did, but he was so excited to come on, and then the first thing he had to do was cut $16 million out of the budget as a team, with, members that are here, Joyce and Tim and Judy, and then obviously the rest of Tony and Cynthia had to do some time cutting as well. So last year was the first year that Mark was able to enjoy a time as a school committee member that he had to make cuts and be part of that team. So he came on and again, 16 million one year, 12 million another year, 10, 8, it just goes on for how many the cuts we had to endure. But his work with the state delegation and his fellow school committee members on pushing the state hard on pushing the student opportunity and getting that voted through, but also becoming the vice chair exactly the time I became superintendent, and helping me and the school committee work closely with the mayor, getting through COVID. So just when we thought we got through the budget cuts, we were excited about the Student Opportunity Act going into place, and then COVID hit that spring. And again, Mark has been a fierce advocate for the Brockton Public Schools and will continue to be as a city councilor. He's been a great friend and a great support for myself and the other school committee members. And it would have been a real struggle without him during my first 2 years as superintendent. So, Mark, we thank you. I thank you personally for always pushing me to do what's best for kids and for the staff in the Brockton Public Schools. And I really thank you for your 6 years of service. And you should be very proud of it.
Yeah, if I could, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. When I became mayor, Mark was vice chair, and he would take my call no matter what. I mean, he has a business to run during the day, but he's very, very, very dedicated to the city, to the boys and girls students, and now, of course, to the constituency from a city council's perspective. So, having served the city council in the past, I know you're up for the job. There's no doubt about that. If you watched it last night, Mark was asking a lot of questions and really digging in, much like you did when you were sitting where Jared is. So just want to thank you for your friendship. I want to thank you for your commitment. And don't forget us when we come before you for the budget, all right?
I just want to thank Mr. DiAgostino. I didn't get a chance to thank you. There was so much going on at the end of the year. So thank you. It was always a pleasure serving with you. We came on. We were the four. Gosh, I don't even remember our name, Mark, but it was Mr. DiAgostino, Mr. Gormley, Ms. Plant, and myself. And we came on as brand new members. And, we were very involved. And it was always a pleasure working with you. We butted heads a few times, but we look at us. We're good friends. So, and I just want to wish you luck in your new position as the counselor for Ward 3. And thank you for your years of service as vice chair. So I'm seeing it firsthand, Mr. DiAgostino. It's a lot of work that people do not see. So thank you for those 2 years that you put in all that extra work. We really appreciate it.
And I'll just say I really appreciate you guys having me back, and I'm very proud of the time that I had on this committee, and we had a lot of difficult things to deal with and to do, but I'll tell you what, we got through it because we worked as a team, and that's really what it's about, is working as a team, and and so my first year as vice chair, obviously 2020 was very difficult, and I want to say again, you know what, as someone in a leadership role on this committee, I could not have gotten through that without having the rock solid, amazing team that I had standing beside me. And so I really thank all of you and all of the people who work in Brockton Public Schools as well. And, we came together as a community and as a team. But the people that I served on with this committee, I'm really appreciative of all of you and your support during my 6 years, and certainly during my time as vice chair, because, without having such a wonderful team, it was a long 2 years, but it would have been much longer. So thank you very much.
It's over $50. Mark, on behalf of the school committee, presented to Mark S. D'Agostino, Brockton School Committee, 2016 through 2021, in recognition of your dedicated service to the students and citizens of the Brockton Public Schools in the city of Brockton. Congratulations, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is his outgoing plaque as vice chair. So Mark, this is represents your 2 years as the vice chair, and obviously you put the gavel in there, even though you didn't have to use it much. I don't think you were excellent. You didn't use your gavel much, but I want to present that to you. And again, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, where is it? Oh, you got the nameplate too? When did we leave that? Oh, he's got it already. All right.
Where are you going to put that?
No. Wait, at your kitchen table when you sit down to dinner.
Yeah. Mr. Sullivan, please.
So, Mark, I just wanted to thank you Mark, I just wanted to thank you for the 6 years on the committee, especially the last 2 years as vice chair. You did a great job. It was a pleasure working with you. And now that you're on the city council, is there anything you can do about lowering the property tax? Really high. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. So next, we're going to bring up Renee Haywood, and she's going to introduce Stephanie Landerholm, who's the department head of social studies at Brockton High School. And they're going to talk about the programs we're doing during Black History Month and also some of the celebrations that will be taking place. So welcome, Renee.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. As you know, February is designated as Black History Month. It's 28 days. You know, it's not relegated to 28 days, though. We believe as a district, it goes beyond that. It goes all the days that we're in school and beyond. And so this is really just a snapshot that you'll see about what is happening in the classroom in terms of Black History Month and curriculum. But I think that what's important is that, you know, in addition to lifting up those positive contributions of Black people, it's important that the work gets rooted within the teachers so that they're taking ownership of this. Actually, I'm going to take this. Okay. I can't breathe. Sorry. And so it's really important that it takes root within the teachers so that they are owning this for themselves because they're the ones that really make this work come alive for the students. So if it's important to them, the students will feel honored and the students will be engaged with what the teacher is teaching. And so we have Stephanie here, and she is the department head of the social science department, and she's just going to give you a snippet of what is going on again in the classroom. There's lots of other activities that are going on, and so you'll see those on the website as well. But we just wanted to give you the snippet. We know that the hour is late.
Hi, everybody. It's 45 minutes past my bedtime, and the Celtics are beating the Nets, so I'll try to make it quick. Okay, here we go. Dr. Zach, you want to click for me? No. Okay, sure. All right. All right. Hi. So in recognition of Black History Month, I asked my team of teachers at Brockton High School in the social science department to share with me examples how they integrate Black history throughout their various courses and curriculum. So this is an abridged version in the interest of time, but I hope that you see it's a testament to the ongoing, vital, yet difficult work that our team is engaged in as a department to demonstrate to our students that Black history is indeed American history. Trying to be quick, but all right. So this slide outlines guiding principle 2 of the Mass Social Science frameworks for what an effective social science education should entail. The focus of this work, so I became department head in 2019. The focus of our work since then has been doing just this, what it says here, amplifying and elevating the voices of those traditionally muted or marginalized throughout history, all throughout the year, right, and not just in February. So this is our goal, an integration of all of these multiple and diverse perspectives all year long throughout our various course offerings. And for the purpose of this presentation, we will be highlighting specifically the African American perspective and integration into our curriculum, but I also wanted to note that this guiding principle also includes the perspective of local history, women, gender, Native American history, Latinx, LGBTQ, and disability histories as well. So it is an all-encompassing, inclusive history that we are providing our students with. So I'm going to show you a few examples of some of the work that is being done in our various courses. You will notice that with many of these assignments, students are asked to engage with and partake in. It's a lot of skill-based assignments where students are focused on inquiry and research with flexibility in demonstrating mastery of the final product. So if there's anything that we learned from COVID and from the pandemic and remote learning, it was about the affording our students flexibility and options in how they demonstrate mastery and skill of content. And so I think these examples give a nice snapshot of the different ways our teachers are allowing our students that flexibility and still maintaining the rigor. So this is an example. Like I said, it's up here. You can read, but I'll try to just give a quick example. So here is a freshman course studying the American Revolution, and this assignment asked students to pretend they were commissioned by a textbook company to report on stories of those individuals who were not included in a traditional textbook who should be because of their contributions. So this would highlight African American history, but also gender, noticing men and women who should be included in that full story. Another freshman course here where students evaluated whether the Western Front was a place of racial equality. I think Dr. Zach had mentioned earlier, she mentioned the fun word, Newsella. So this is an example of an assignment that incorporates our district social science resource, Newsella. Just a note about that, we curated the content to reflect our diverse student body and that focus on multiple perspectives. So you'll see, and our goal is for our students to see themselves represented in the curriculum as much as possible. Here's another assignment. This is one of our newer teachers this year who's doing an awesome job. In this assignment, students were able to select a slave rebellion or uprising of their choice. So they worked collaboratively as a class to come up with to devise the same inquiry questions for research, but again, had their choice of which rebellion or uprising to choose and to demonstrate mastery of what the significance is of their event to history. So in this specific example, you see some student examples of the Haitian Revolution, German Coast Uprising, and then a lot of students also chose Nat Turner's Rebellion to research as well. This is an assignment where students had to choose an abolitionist of the year and had to nominate them as the Time Person magazine cover of the year. And so that overarching question for this assignment was, why should your abolitionist be remembered as the person of the year by Time magazine? We shared this collaboratively in our department as part of our department time in the last meeting, and it's nice to see how a lot of these strategies can be incorporated across courses, right, and even across disciplines with this research-based attempt. Was anybody in the dating market 2013 before Facebook or before social media? No. Okay. So this was one of my favorite assignments. It incorporates the idea of speed dating. This was a fun assignment where students during the reform movement, students took on different individuals from various reform movements, so representing disability history, prison reform, education, abolition. They each assumed that character, and they speed dated throughout the class. It was all appropriate. No worries. They speed dated to learn about others, and then they had to write about who their match was in terms of their goals for those specific reforms of the century. And then they also discussed later on what types of reforms the U.S. should be trying to address today and how they would go about making those impacts. So again, relation to history, the content, but then also trying to tie it into modern day examples. So this is another example. This is in a US 2 course where students would be analyzing various visuals. So this also goes with our See, Think, Wonder initiatives and our analyzing charts and graphs to help with math. And they would be looking at the overarching question of the United States and did they successfully achieve the goal of protecting African Americans after 1865. This was a really great assignment. In this course, students were learning about Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Massacre and its impact. Important questions were raised by students. Students were really interested in this lesson to determine why some topics like this are sometimes omitted from history books. And Mr. Cunningham here used Facing History. That's one of our supplemental resources that we like to use because their resources are really powerful in addressing racism, anti-Semitism, topics of prejudice at pivotal moments in history. So this was a really great lesson where students can connect the decisions in history to today. This is a quick snapshot of a class opener, right? So these things don't have to be full activities or summative assessments. It could be something, a quick hit to start class. So this is, students had their choices of an array of quotations. They had to pick one that they could relate to and explain what they believed the quote meant, but then also what the larger meaning could be to 1920s society. So this was during the Harlem Renaissance in our 1920s unit. This next one is also the Harlem Renaissance, but you have an idea of how the assignments vary. This one, students were able to choose a figure during the Harlem Renaissance. So Josephine Baker was here, and students presented a newspaper, created newspaper articles to highlight what her contributions were to both the Harlem Renaissance and the jazz age in the United States. This was pre-district initiative, but another shout out to one of my new teachers. She has been using Newsela a lot, and this is a paired text activity. So this was about the African American experience during World War II and how they were able to use the war as an opportunity to fight for civil rights. And this is an activity where students would partner up together. They would each choose the reading of their choice, come together, and use information from both texts to answer the overarching question, which is there on the bottom. Same content here with World War II and achieving civil rights. So students created World War II era newspaper articles to highlight and explain the impact that Black soldiers had in World War II, and then also the impact on the Double V campaign in the United States. This is another idea, a teaching idea from Facing History. Again, really great resource where students can connect choices made in the past to those that they might confront in the present day. And this was an assignment about the civil rights movement, specifically students in Central Rock High. And this included, so students examined various primary sources, and they went around the room completing graffiti boards to try to relate to the content and show how the choices students made at Little Rock collectively shaped society during the civil rights movement. These next two are very similar. We are piloting a new world history course on case studies by country, and this is from our pilot course. So these next two are about South Africa, and using multiple sources to answer the questions about apartheid and how it discriminated against African majority in South Africa. But again, it's high rigor, multiple sources, right, and high interest for our kids. And again, this is another example where students studied the Constitution pre- and post-apartheid to see how South African government became more inclusive over the years. These last three I'm really excited about also. So besides our core courses, we offer AP and IB courses, but then also we have senior courses and other elective courses, which are really powerful and of high interest to our students. This is one of our psychology courses open to seniors, and this is an example of where you would also see Black history infused. Dr. Kenneth Clark was studied with his famous doll study, and how the outcomes of this case was used as evidence in the Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education. So this was a really neat lesson that students enjoyed. This is another elective open to all students in 9 through 12 art history. So students worked to identify different ideals of the Constitution and had to compare them to an artist to see how effective the artist was in conveying the American ideals through her artwork. And then finally, African American history is a senior course as well. And this is an example from first semester from the senior project to culminate the course. And this, Mr. Hazelwood adapted this assignment from, it's called The Beautiful Resistance from the Boston Globe. And students were asked to create a presentation on what their beautiful resistance is. So you see there's poetry, there's artwork, there's music. And then students had to, again, connect what they chose for their presentation to an individual of African descent, whether distinguished or personal connection. And so this course is an opportunity for students to dive deeper into themes of African American history in this culminating elective. However, the idea that you've heard tonight is that it's not by chance, right, that our students will be exposed or engaged with Black history. It's, by careful design, and it's something that we've been working on and will continue to do so throughout our curriculum. So that's it, but I also wanted to say a thank you to my IRS, who's been pivotal in doing the work, Stacey Medina, and then also my entire team of social science teachers at the high school for working towards this goal of an all-inclusive curriculum. Thank you. Is that it? Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Landerholm. I mean, this is really how our kids are going to be connected to learning. I mean, just seeing this, I really want to go back to high school and come in these classes because it's really engaging. This is how we prepare our kids for beyond the four walls of our classroom, beyond Brockton, because they're going to be having these conversations when they leave here, and these classes prepare them to have that. So thank you so much to you and your team. Thank you.
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you, and thank you for all the work. We know how hard it is, how much you put into it, you and your teachers, and it's much appreciated. So, thank you for the presentation tonight. And like Renee said, and you said, it's Black History is just not the 28 days in February, and that's been clear. So, thank you to both you and Stacey, and to put everything together and working hard with your staff, and to the staff at Brockton High School as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my dad was a history teacher up here for years, so I applaud what you do from social services and social sciences perspective, social services, social sciences perspective, and I love the fact that the synergy between you and Renee is real, and that the buy-in of the teachers is real. So kudos to all of you, and look forward to more of this in the future. Thank you both.
Good. All right, next we're going to have, did I miss you? Oh, there you are. Cindy, come on up. I've been skipping around. I
a little bit tonight.
I can't see. I got to get my glasses back on. So Principal Burns of Brockton High School obviously is going to give us an update. We had a great update from our student representative. Thank you so much for that, Ellen. And we have now Cindy to give us an update on things that she's doing from the administration point of view, and also the work she's doing with the staff and the students at Brockton High School, and an update on how things have been going, centered not only around safety and security, but around the great things that are being done by the staff and engaging the students and really moving us forward.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm almost afraid to click, but I will. So this is a kind of a mid-year update, and the theme of it all is moving forward, because I know, and I couldn't be more proud hearing our student representative, Ellen, talk, and our department head, Ms. Landerholm. I mean, this is the great work going on that you see each and every day at Brockton High, and despite the rough opening, we continue to move forward. So that's really kind of what I want to talk about a little bit, maybe. All right, I'm not going to do, Dr. Zach talked about a lot of this, but I'll just skip to the bottom and say that our goal, we are an academic institution. So a lot of the things that Dr. Zach talked about are in progress and are going on a daily basis. And actually, Ellen leaned over to me and said, I did this already, and I think it really helps. So that was good to hear. But we are looking at curriculum-wise. We have a new math and science curriculum, and we continue to work and roll that out and work with the vendor to make sure that teachers know how to really put that out to students in a way that is most efficient and for them. We have just spent $10,000 kind of buying a diverse set of ELA text and novels that weren't there before, so those all came in, and so we look forward to kind of getting a curriculum around that. And then looking at the bilingual department, I've been actually sitting in on the bilingual department meetings, and the need was clear for a curriculum that they could use, and so we have a planned purchase for that. So academically, said the work goes on. But what people are interested in and want to hear about, okay. So we've been dealing with an Omicron surge at Brockton High School, as we all know, and it really impacted attendance in a real way. But the issues are improving. The surge is coming down, the attendance is getting better. We've been getting COVID test kits out to all the staff and to students. So we are seeing a definite improvement in student attendance, in teacher attendance, in staff attendance, and that makes a big difference in the building. The exterior door security has improved. We're working very closely with school police, to kind of continually look at that, to see how we can do it better, how we can improve what we do. We have a private security company in right now supplementing due to the staffing shortages, but the students are getting used to it, and it is a thing that when you talk to students, they feel safer having that there. I know families do. The community allies are in the process of being hired, and we're working on a training to make sure that they can seamlessly fit in and do what we hope that they can do, which is to be a community support for the building. We've actually asked Safe Corners to come in now and work at Brockton High. I worked with them at Champion. I know how effective that they can be. What they are, if you don't know, is they are peace advocates, and they work with students on ways to have conflict resolution that doesn't end in a fight. They'll work within the building, they'll work without the building, they will work with families, they are present in the school, and then the deans and the assistant deans, when they know of an issue, can refer a student, and they will work with those students. So those are just some of the initiatives that we have going on there. I would like to seriously thank school police, because their role goes beyond even the door, that type of security. We have had students really dealing with significant mental health issues and social emotional health issues, and what they do to help us support students who are in those situations, I can't say enough, because it really is a great partnership between the school police and us. So thank you very much to the school police for what they do for our school each and every day. Behavior data. So if you look at September, that was our honeymoon period, really wasn't our honeymoon period. These are the total number of incidents. Now these include things like tardy to class. They can be, I didn't have my ID on, all the way up to a fight, or having something more like a knife or something more severe. So we didn't really have a honeymoon period in September like we usually do. They were over 2,000 incidents, and you can see it continually got worse as we moved through the fall, where it really hit a peak in November with almost 4,000 incidents recorded. And then it began to come down. And it began to come down through a lot of hard work. I would have to credit our assistant principal for for climate and culture, who really worked hard to create fun moments for students, moments in the CAF where they could bond, as Ellen talked about, where they could have fun at school, because school is not all academics. If you don't form those close bonds with each other, if you don't form those close bonds with the adults that are working with you so closely, it really becomes something that you're not happy to come to. You don't connect to it, and you don't really feel any ownership of it. So the process was slow, but it started to come down. And then you look at January, and the numbers are down. And then I pulled this data today, and you could have heard me in the next office, just so excited. I know we're only a week into February, but even if you project it out and multiplied that times 3, we're still at literally only half of what we were at our worst. So things are going in the right direction. The things that we're putting into place are working, and I'll talk a little bit about what those are. So before we get, this is kind of a breakdown, and if you look at the left side, what are the most things that we see, and this is kind of contrary maybe to what the public impression is, right? Most of what we see for the bad behavior in those huge numbers that are kind of scary are cuts, tardies, wandering. So it's not that people are going around hurting each other. It's mostly behavior that even Ellen described it as a lot of the young folks that came in, and who's doing these behaviors. It's primarily the 9th grade. So that's what the data shows us. So this is what's happening. So yes, we've had incidents that are scary and are very concerning, and they make us angry and all of those things. But when you look at the data, it's really, these are the things that are happening. Now, having said that, they contributed to a negative climate in the building, and where academics wasn't the focus, and academics needs to be our focus. So this is December. If I printed out the October, it would be off the chart, and so we're not going to, dwell. We're moving forward. That's the theme here. But I did want to show you how the trend line goes. So there's December, and there's January. So if you look at it, those yellow arrows, those are the fights. Okay, so the month of January and February, you had, January and December, 9 fights in December, 8 fights in January. My first day on the job, they were 6 fights in that one day alone. So that's an incredible, again, testament to the student adjustment counselors that have been working with the students, to the deans, to the assistant deans, to the guidance counselors, to everyone, the behavior interventionists, the mentors. All of these people are in place to support students, to kind of divert them from these really seriously negative behaviors. But the work continues. We don't want to see any fighting, but that is an improvement. And again, if you look at the far left, the period 5 cut, that's lunchtime. And that's a very attractive time for kids to want to cut, because they want to hang out with their friends. So if you look at December for period 5, there were 501 cases of that. By January, 368. So again, that's a great drop, and it shows that kids are getting the message about what the expectations are, where they're supposed to be during period 5. The other issue, and I know you've heard this from teachers that have come to talk at the hearing of visitors about the wandering in the building. So in December, 438 incidents recorded, January down to 360. Class disruptions have been, fewer, but are still a problem. You can't get to the academics of what you need to do if kids are, blowing out of the room. So in December, 157 incidents. January, which is actually, there's more school instructional days in January, far fewer, only 84. So this is, again, showing that things are going in the right direction. There, more work to be done, for sure. But it is, it's heartening to me as the principal, because I know what Brockton High kids can do. I know what Brockton High staff can do when we all work together. And this is really, it shows that the parents, the staff, the students, we all care. I've had great support from the superintendent of schools, from, from the district. So we've had some good work there. So what did we do? So this is not, you can't suspend your way out of bad behavior. That has never been the case. I worked in an alternative school. I will tell you for a fact that I know that that is not the way to go. The way that you build a school that is respectful and calm is you create positive relationships, which is one of our focus areas. So how have we done this? We looked at data, right? That's how we know that it's the 9th grade. That's how we know what the issues are. And then this data has driven intervention. So the deans and the assistant deans look to see who is it in their building, who particularly do we need to look at, who do we need to focus on, who do we need to support. Because yes, there should be a consequence when there's bad behavior, but along with that consequence has to be, well, what do we do to fix it? Because again, you're not going to suspend yourself out of anybody's poor behavior. So those interventions involved a variety of things, but a lot of it was the parent, come up and we need to talk. And so the deans, the assistant deans had those meetings. I had those meetings. The superintendent had those meetings. The deputy superintendent has had those meetings, in addition to the adjustment counselors. So it really is an all hands on deck effort, but it is driven by data. We have now in the building Tier 2 behavior interventionists, mentors, dedicated support counselors. These are all coordinated by the assistant principal, Gary Guillotot. That has brought a form to it that didn't exist before, because before it was kind of all these things were willy-nilly thrown in and let's hope it works and something sticks. Well, it doesn't work that way. As we all know, we needed to apply a structure to it. So we are having these folks, again, based on the data, so they might meet with the deputy superintendent, meet with the superintendent. Well, what's next? They come back. Now they work with the Tier 2 behavior interventionist to follow them along. What happens next to make sure that they're not falling back or slipping back? We have, with Laurie, I want to thank Laurie Mason. We have a new we are interviewing today, a 9th grade student adjustment counselor position to work with students with disabilities. Because again, when you look at the data, we talk about the 9th grade. Well, what's causing the 9th graders to do that? Yes, part of it is they haven't been in school. But the other part is, if you're struggling academically, sometimes your response to that is, well, I'm going to blow out of class because I don't want anyone to know that I'm struggling academically. So this counselor will be dedicated to the 9th grade and to students with disabilities to really see what we can do to affect some good positive change there. And it'll be a lot of it social emotional based, psycho educational groups. So different things to really work with that population. There was, prior, I think we were all familiar with the idea of an in-school suspension, and that doesn't exist at Brockton High anymore, but we needed to have something in place for students to kind of come back to. Now, the old in-school model didn't work. It was kids would go in the room and they would sit there and fall asleep or, do something maybe, but it really was, that's why it was eliminated, because it wasn't productive use of student time. So what we're doing is we're not calling it a suspension. It's in school, it's an intervention program, and it is structured by the period of the day. So they begin with a review. This is the behavior interventionist in the room, the support counselors, the deans, the assistant deans, anybody that we can bring to bear that would kind of really impact student behavior. So the in-school intervention begins with a review of what's going on with you, kind of a very individualized approach. This is where you are with your credits, this is what your behavior has been, this is where your grades are, and this is what you need to do to improve. So they work with a behavior interventionist to look at behaviors. What is it that you're doing? How does it impact you? So rather than saying, naughty, naughty, you're doing bad things and you're making everybody unhappy, it's you're hurting yourself and this is where you are. So that's the beginning of the day. Then it moves on. There's actually a writing to text activity during the day based on social emotional health. They will work to create goals, to create SMART goals for themselves. Then they'll break into smaller groups for counseling. And so it's really structured along a day. And then there's time within that day to keep up with their regular schoolwork. And the end of the day is really creating an action plan for what they're going to do to kind of get out of the hole that they're in. Because a lot of the students that are blowing out and that you see, in that large number are also failing their classes. So the final support there would be, we'll have a credit recovery program, and they will, commit to attending credit recovery, and we show them how they will benefit. You go to credit recovery, the year is not lost, we have half a year left, and we really need you to try to focus. And for a lot of students who are repeating ninth grade, we show them that they can catch up and graduate with their regular, their original graduating class, and that's often a big motivator. So it's really showing students how to do technology. That's a part of the day where we make sure they know how to navigate the technology that's educationally based. I mean, they can, do a Snapchat like nobody's business, but it's not always that they can figure out how do I get to my LMS and get to my assignment and then upload and submit my assignment. So we really make sure during this day that they know how to do that and that they have the technology and they're doing what they need. And then the last thing we did, and this is really about 3 weeks old, is we have enhanced hallway supervision, and that was again supported by the district. We've had people from across the district come, and basically we're in the halls because we had an issue with kids wandering. We had an issue with kids packing the bathroom, and TikTok challenges were in the bathroom. We all heard about that. Let's rip the sink out. Let's take out the soap dispensers. Let's record ourselves having a fight. The very things that were making the building feel unsafe and making the feeling of the building like that it was chaotic and not focused on school. So we have to kind of go back. What's in our handbook? The handbook says you can't walk around with your hood on so nobody can tell who you are. You can't walk around with your mask down. We're in the middle of a pandemic. You can't just wander around without a pass in your hand, and you have to have an ID on so we know that you belong here. So these are not new rules. These are rules that have always been in the handbook. And what we decided to do is to make sure that there were enough people in the hallway that when we found people doing what they weren't supposed to do, they were funneled to a room where the deans and the assistant deans were there to talk with them, to look at who they were, what they were up to, and to give them an immediate consequence. For most students, that consequence was a lunch detention or an after-school detention, a Saturday work. Students that we identified, again, looking at data, as being, having 100+ incidents, failing every class, wandering constantly, those folks were referred to meet with the superintendent, with the deputy superintendent, with myself, and to really, come up with a real, you need to kind of do this. This is what school has to be calm. These are rules that are expectations for everyone. And the word went out fast among the students that this was serious and that we had to, and most students, and I will actually, most people I talked to, were happy for it. They're like, oh, there's finally a structure here. We are a community, and I use that word purposefully. We are a community of teachers and learners and support staff. We cannot function in a building with almost 5,000 people if we don't have that structure in place. Students want it. Teachers have universally been happy that, I get on the PA every period and I say, listen, this is coming from me, this is coming from the superintendent, these are our policies, we have to follow them. And it takes some of the burden off the teachers that they don't have to be the ones, disciplining the students on that. So frees them up to be educators, that they don't have to deal with a lot of that, day to day, oh, you put your ID on, because we need the relation, again, that was critical focus area. We need the relationship with the teacher and the student to be positive. Right. So, this is our job as administrators to make sure that the building is calm and that the conditions for learning are met. So that's how we did it. And we will continue to enforce that and make sure that, I said the building needs to stay calm. Okay. So climate and culture is really the part I want to focus on, because none of the academics, I said, we talk about setting conditions for learning. If the positive relationships is the third one, but if there are no positive relationships, it's very hard to teach a student who doesn't like you. It's very hard to reach a student who doesn't want to come to school or who comes to school just to socialize and not do the academic piece. We need to engage. So we've engaged by really doing things, again, that connect students to what Brockton High gives them, an identity, and that's what was sorely lacking in September and October and November, an identity and a pride in being a Brockton boxer. That wasn't there. And so we were kind of slowly building that back. So senior week, senior faculty basketball game, we had a cultural Thanksgiving celebration where we brought DJs in and we had music and we prepared meals that, kids were like, oh, this is like my grandmother makes. So it was very well received. And so we did it again in December, where we had a Holidays Around the World celebration, again with music, but this time we had students performing their own music. We had some teachers performing. We had some teachers dancing. We had student dance groups get up and they were dancing. So it created for a moment of that really feeling of, oh, the chaos is gone and we feel good about being at Brockton High. And I think that those days were very special. Coming up this month, we have a Valentine's Appreciation event where students can write a card to their teacher, thanking them, write a card to each other. It's a 25 cents a card, but we're raising money for Father Bill's. So again, kind of that idea of working as a community, not only within Brockton High, but a larger community in Brockton. We have created new opportunities. I mean, we have a lot of clubs at Brockton High, but some have been defunct because there's no longer the interest that there might have been in the 80s. So really looking at what's offered to kids and allowing kids that voice to say what clubs they would like to see. So out of this came a photography and art club. We have an artist in residence who's a professional photographer who is teaching our students how to take professional portraits, not just the click and shoot that we do with our iPhones, but using a digital camera. So this is some of the work. So this is the picture of Brockton High I want you to see. I don't really want you to focus on, the ugly chart with all that stuff on it. This is Brockton High. These are the kids that we support each and every day. These pictures were taken by other students, and they are now posted around the building. They're going to continue to go up, where the plan is to have a gallery show in the spring. So everyone's invited to come and attend that. But we're going to do sports teams. Students will be able to pose. The theme of it is every smile tells a story. What is your story? So if you play the tuba, you can pose with your tuba. If you're a soccer player, bring your soccer ball. So that's kind of where we're going with that. And I think it's really created a buzz. I've never seen a club hit like 60 members that fast, but, and growing. So we're really trying to tap into the creativity and the artistic ability that so many of our students have. So along with that, we have a boxing club. Nobody's hitting each other. It's cardio only. We've had enough boxing in September, October, and November, so we're not doing that. But it's learning the skill behind it, and it's attracting a different group of kids that maybe they weren't academically eligible to be on a sport right now, but they have incredible athletic ability. It's open to everybody, male, female. If you can run, you can run. If you can do 10 push-ups, that's great. If you can't do any, that's okay too. The boxing has such a connection to Brockton, but it's also very individual. The only one you're competing against is yourself, and that's created a lot of interest. So we look forward to seeing how that one goes. But we're working with Capiello's Gym, so any student that wants to continue on and actually, compete in that level will be able to do so. But for now, it's just really a physical cardio, and then we'll be introducing a mentoring element into that as well. Dance clubs are very popular. We've got a few new ones. There's a K-pop. I didn't know what K-pop was, but now there's K-pop, and they're quite talented. A NASA club, they're growing vegetables in moon dust, don't ask me how, and open mic night, because we have a lot of kids that are interested in music, and we're going to facilitate that for them. So that changes climate. That creates positivity. When kids are proud of where they go to school, when there's something that makes them want to be there, then the academics flows from that. Right? And those positive relationships with adults lead to conversations about why is it important that you finish high school and then look to the next thing, which is college or the military or trade school. That's where those conversations happen, and it's so critical to have that conversation. And said, that's what you see when you walk around Brockton High. You see those smiles. And I know everything that we've heard has been so negative, but that's what I see every day, and that's what I talk about every day. And we deal with the things that aren't positive, but in a way that supports. Because, like I said, you're not going to ever suspend yourself out of people that aren't doing the right thing, but you can invite them into the school and make them part of your community. So, I guess I'm done. Same thing happened. So here's some pictures of some of the things that went on in the cafeteria. We had some Cape Verdean music. Some of the teacher. This is the advisor of the dance club. So she did a demonstration for the kids to get them excited. I'm down there in the corner. I was serving lunch one day, and so it's just that feeling of being out with the kids and doing everything we can to make them feel comfortable. There is a Black History Month celebration. I know we did all the work in the classroom, But what we're bringing to our honor roll assembly on February 7th is a celebration with music, with the band, with the theater department, and that will be in the auditorium on the 7th. And we've been announcing every morning different themes. It started off with historical figures in Black history, barrier breakers, and then the last week of February will be our own staff who are barrier breakers on their own. So our educators, our staff members of color will have the opportunity to get on the announcement and talk about what Black history means to them and how it's impacted their journey. So that's what we are doing at Brockton High, and I was as fast as I could do it, I'm sorry. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. I also want to say that it's been interesting I meet with probably on average 2 to 3 students a day who have struggled at the high school, and it's not exclusion hearings. It's basically a meeting with myself. Dr. Zakowitz has been meeting with students. I've probably have met with almost 60 students since October, and them and their parents about, the classes they're cutting. It's not about failing grades, cutting class, being late for class, wandering around the building, and basically, how do we get them support, whether they need to be tested for special education services if they're not getting those already. Sometimes those meetings include Laurie Mason from the special education department. Sometimes it includes bilingual. And, they've been very positive. I have to say the parents have been great, and really looking for help for students that are struggling. So the meetings with me, the meetings with Dr. Zakowitz have been about being positive and trying to figure out what's going on to get to the root of the problem. And then when they go back to Brockton High School after meeting with us, it's basically what supports do we need to be put in place. Some students have some students have been very honest. It's too big. I cannot function there. So those students have gone to the champion and have done well so far. And but the meetings have been, there's a lot of them, and the schedules have been packed. But Melinda and Lisa do a great job of scheduling the parents and the students. And again, it's been really good meeting with them and eye-opening. And I think it's important to continue. I've always felt it was important that sometimes we become superintendent, you lose that touch with students, and meeting with them has been, it's eye-opening, it keeps you involved, and it shows you, and also keeps you in tune to what teachers and staff are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Nowhere near what they deal with a class of 28, but being able to meet with kids and seeing what they're actually doing and how we can help them. So I thank Cindy for her leadership, but I also thank the staff and teachers at Brockton High, because it's been a long year, but they have continued to persevere and do whatever they can to improve the culture of the school. And I give them a lot of credit for what's been going on. Again, all bad things there's still fights. It's a school of 4,000. We've had fights ever since I went to school there and before, and you will continue to have fights, but it's how we support kids and how we deal with those things. And like Cindy said, you can't suspend your way out of changing things. It has to be done around support. And so kudos to the high school staff for how much work they've put into this. Yeah, that's the end of my report.
That's it, Mr. Superintendent. We will now go on to agenda item 6, which is new business discussion and potential vote regarding a half-day for middle school family school conferences on March 24th, 2022.
What happened? Oh, any items to refer to subcommittee?
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
have something.
I didn't even see that. Yeah, see, items to refer to subcommittee. We do have a few.
Yep, so basically, starting for our first Tuesday in March, we have to now get into budget mode. So basically, every Tuesday, either before a school committee meeting, we would have a finance subcommittee meeting, and then on the non-school committee nights, we would have a finance subcommittee, because we have to obviously build our budget, and we'll be ready to start that process with you the first Tuesday in March, but we've done this every year, is basically plan out for the whole month of March, the budget meetings, and then obviously if things were going well and we were able to settle a budget, we're able to pull back on those meetings, but it's something that we have to make sure we schedule all those because budget season is busy. It's not as busy as it used to be because we're not going to be figuring out how many people to lay off, so it's going to be a lot easier. But we obviously want, to make sure that's one of the, obviously, your biggest parts of being a school committee member is building the budget. So we need to book all those Tuesdays for finance subcommittee meetings, and then other meetings obviously would take place. We just have to figure out times, on those non-Tuesday school committees, what meetings days we can figure out what times the other committees can meet as well.
Excellent, thank you. And I know, Vice Chairman, I know there was another matter we wanted to refer.
Well, I just want to make a statement. That March 1st, I am going to be at a conference. So just so you know, I will not be able to attend that meeting. I'll be out of state. And then the other item for...
It was the one that, the naming, building,
Oh, yes.
From the last, yeah.
We're going to schedule a meeting for the building naming subcommittee.
Yep.
So we can work on that as far as naming the auditorium for Mr. Macrina and Ms. Thomas, correct?
yeah, a resident had forwarded that in the last legislative session, so we need to revisit that. Correct.
Okay, we'll go ahead and schedule a meeting for that. And I know there's a few subcommittees that, we're going to start scheduling some meetings. I know Mr. Rodriguez was going to schedule a safety one, and Mr. We're going to do a facility. So we'll get a few meetings on schedule.
Great.
Between March and April.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Athletics,
Yep.
arts, that's the big one.
Okay.
Right.
No other matters relative to referring to subcommittee, so we'll go on. Again, six is unfinished, new business, discussion and potential vote regarding a half-day for middle school, family school conferences on March 24th, 2022.
So I apologize for this. This is my oversight. When we were doing the supplemental calendar last year, we missed the half-day for middle schools to do parent conferences. What they do is, so they have an afternoon session for parents and then an evening session. I did not put the half-day in on the March 24th for the middle schools. It's not an in-service day, it's a half-day, so teachers could have 2 hours, obviously, of parent conference time in the afternoon and 2 hours at night, obviously. So I need for, obviously, you control the calendar, so I need a vote to make March 24th, which I believe is a Thursday, a half-day for middle school.
Entertain a motion relative to that matter?
Approved.
You have to make a motion first. You make a motion on that?
Make a motion to approve.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a second.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're getting the hang of it. Motion was made by Ms. Ehlers. It was seconded by Mr. Sullivan. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries unanimously. The matter now that comes before us is agenda item 7. And I got to read the following into the minutes and into the record, if I could.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I have one item on the new business
Sure.
before you jump.
Sure.
The bid review subcommittee met on Monday, January 31st, 2022 at 4:30 PM. This was an open meeting held on Zoom. A roll call for quorum was done. We had a quorum. Present was Chair Tim Sullivan, Tony Rodriguez, and Judy Sullivan. Also present was Mike Bandits from the Brockton Public Schools Administration Office and Thomas from BCA. Governor Baker's COVID report memo was read, and the agenda was as follows. There was 10 separate bids for fiscal year '22. On all the bids, a separate motion was made by Judy Sullivan and seconded by Tony Rodriguez, and a roll call for the vote was taken. After each motion, they were all unanimous, approved. Item 1, painting service, contract number 22800030. The low bid of $86 per hour, Monday through Friday, nights, weekends, and holidays, was given to JB Painting Service Incorporated of 211 Mechanic Street, Marlborough, Mass. Item 2, lease of combined general use of office space and classroom space for Brockton Public Schools. The low bid was Foundation Capital Resources Incorporated of 3900 South Overland Ave, Springfield, Missouri, 65807. Year 1 was $118,750. Year 2, $300,000. Year 3, $300,000. And just as a note, items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 were removed because of mistake and was going to take place at a later date. I have two motions. The first motion is the motion to accept these minutes as read.
So motion made by Mr. Sullivan. Is there a second relative to that motion?
Second.
Motion was made by Mrs. Sullivan. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries. Mr. Sullivan?
The second motion is to move this item favorably to the full school committee for its consideration.
That's the form of a motion.
In a motion, yes.
Second on that?
Second.
It was made by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mrs. Sullivan. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. It carries unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. We will now go on to 7 on the agenda, which is executive session. And I got to read the following to the record. The committee went to executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, for the purpose of conducting strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as conducting this deliberation in an open session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. But this is the most important here. The committee will, underline, will return to open session following executive session. So at this time, we'll go into executive session. We'll depart this room. We'll go into executive session, but we will be coming back on that matter. Okay? Got to take a roll call to go into executive session. It has to be in a roll call form. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Homer?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers? Mrs. Rivas-Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Chair says yes. We'll go into executive session. We'll be coming back. I hereby call the Brockton School Committee for February 8th, 2022 back into order. We will now entertain several motions relative to reorganization. We have a subcommittee assignment for the year 2022 relative to the MTAs and paraprofessionals. Tony Rodriguez, Chair, Cynthia Rivas-Mendez, and Jared Homer are serving for the MTAs. We would like to collectively have those 3 members also work with MTAs and paraprofessionals. So the MTAs and paraprofessionals negotiate collectively. And again, it would be Tony as chair, Cynthia, and Jared. Is there a motion relative to that matter?
Motion to approve that subcommittee where Tony, Cynthia, and Jared sit to be merged into paraprofessionals at MTA.
Motion made by Mrs. Rivas-Mendez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, I'll give it to Mr. Homer. It was pretty close on that one. And again, the motion is on the floor. It was properly second. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries unanimously. So the MTAs and paraprofessionals, the negotiating team on behalf of the school committee would be Tony Rodriguez as chair, Cynthia Rivas-Mendez, and Jared Homer. Now, the matter before us would be a Scrivener's error, which was not put on the subcommittee assignment relative to our new transportation, which is a member of the Teamsters Union. It's specifically to our drivers. The subcommittee needs to be formulated tonight, again, on the reorg. The motion should be relative to Judy Sullivan as chair, Timothy Sullivan, and Kathy Ehlers as the 3 members on behalf of the school committee for our bargaining team for the transportation Teamsters. Is there a motion relative to that matter?
Motion to approve the change to the Teamsters for Judy Sullivan, Tim Sullivan, and Kathy Ehlers subcommittee.
Second.
Motion on the floor was made by Mrs. Sullivan. It's properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, again, that motion carries unanimously. So the subcommittee assignment would be Judy Sullivan, Chair, Timothy Sullivan, Kathy Ehlers, and this is, again, negotiating on behalf of the school committee for the Teamsters, which is the transportation department. Is there another matter before us, Vice Chairman?
There's another Scribner's error. For the facilities usage and planning, if we can switch out Mr. Rodriguez and have Mr. Sullivan as the chair of that committee, everything else will remain the same as far as Tony Rodriguez, Joyce Asak, Tim Sullivan, and Judy Sullivan serving on that, but we will have Timothy Sullivan as chair.
That's the form of a motion.
Yes.
Is there a second relative to that matter?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas Mendez. So motion on the floor is properly second. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? Again, that motion carries unanimous as well. Any other matters before us this evening? Anybody want to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
I think we all seconded that one. There's a motion on the floor is properly second. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? We're adjourned. Have a great night. Drive careful. Thank you.